Hey guys, welcome to the video and welcome back to the channel. So this time around we're going to look at two specific mods that I think are in the running to have their dino or creature, if it's not actually a dinosaur, added to the official game. So first one we're looking at here is Prehistoric Beasts, and the second one here is ARK Editions, the collection. There is also Kraken's Better Dinos that adds a couple of creatures to it, but I think just for the sake of sheer uniqueness and perhaps variety, I think ARK Editions and Prehistoric Beasts just has a better chance of having their creatures added. So in regards to this Prehistoric Beasts mod, there is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. So there's 20 potential options, and especially this one down here, planned sponsored creatures. So Prehistoric Beasts has been created by Firesolved and Krista. Now this mod I actually don't have any experience with. I didn't know it existed until recently when it was added to the ARK sponsored mod list. However, upon looking at it, some of these are just insane. So right here we've got a Nasuto Ceratops. So unlike the Trike, it's only got two horns and they face forward. We've got a Zuni Ceratops, which was the first creature in North America to have horns and a frill. We've got the Palinkosaurus. Is that how you pronounce it? Pinacosaurus. So Pinacosaurus there. We've got Prionosuchus here, the giant amphibian. Just the Diplocaulus, just supersized. Hyneria, which if you look closely, you take away its head, and if you looked at that body, you'd think it was just a coelacanth. Draco Venata, which if you look at the size of this bush here in comparison, this thing's probably not much bigger than a dillo. Postosuchus, including an alpha variant with a skeleton skin, that's kind of cool. Kalenkin, here, so a terror bird, arguably one of the biggest that ever has lived. Centausaurus, just a larger cousin to the Parasaur. Siamosaurus, is that how you pronounce it? Siamosaurus, yep. Siamosaurus, which is just a big baryonyx or a small Spino. The tail sort of gives away that it is quite comfortable in water. Massospondylus. Interesting story with the Massospondylus. It's what's called a prosauropod. So it's widely believed that prosauropods were omnivorous. Their ancestors were carnivores, whereas their descendants, the sauropods, were herbivorous. So prosauropods like Massospondylus here, they evolved into Brachys and Diplos and the Bronto and whatnot. And these creatures aren't actually all that unique to change their diet from meats to, well, veganism. The tickle chicken actually did the same thing. It used to be a streamlined predator until it turned into a pot-bellied, turkey with gigantic claws. What else have we got here? The Neovenator. So the Neovenator is actually related to aloes, and if you look carefully at the main body of it and the hands and the feet, you'll actually just see an aloe that's been reskinned. Neovenator. Ornithochirus. So Ornithochirus is, I guess, it was a very large flyer, much bigger than that of Tropiognathus. However, with the addition of Crystal Isles, I can't see Ornithochirus sort of being added to the into the realm just yet. That's Postosuchus again. Hinosaurus. So Hinosaurus was one of the largest mosasaurs to ever have lived, and this, as well as Mosasaurus and Tylosaurus, were the three largest that I'm aware of, at least. So whether or not this has taken over Mosasaur or living alongside it, I don't know. The giant sea slug. Now, in a creature like this, I've always found to be interesting because I've always thought that Wildcard was going to add a creature in like a clam or a mussel or something like that you could pick up out of the water, like the shallows, and take it back to your base and have like a certain structure, like a pond structure. You know how we got crop plots that are small, medium, and large, and well, now tech. I thought that maybe they would add something like artificial ponds, small, medium, and large, which would allow you to put certain aquatic creatures in them, like small creatures, not gigantic things like megalodons and stuff, but just small creatures that are able to live in there, and you can feed it certain resources for them to give you back certain resources. Like, not necessarily a slug, but starfish, where you can grow them, because when you cut them, as long as one part still has a heart and whatever else, if you split it in half, the starfish will grow back. So you cut it in half and all of a sudden you've got fish meat. Or a clam, you feed it sand and it'll give you back silica pearls and black pearls. You know, just for those who can't be bothered to go out and get a phoenix from scorched earth for the passive silica pearls. Saltosaurus. So Saltosaurus was probably about half the size of a Diplo. It was a very teeny tiny sauropod. I really like the coloration actually. So I don't know what utility a little teeny tiny sauropod would have, but I'd like to think it'd have a couple of seats there, probably quite agile for a sauropod, and maybe act as like some kind of alarm. So if it bellowed out or something, it might alarm creatures around it, like wild creatures, to help defend it or something like that. I don't actually know. I've never played with this mod, but yeah, that'd just be my my take on it. So that's sort of the list that we've been shown here. Uranosaurus, which was a hadrosaur like a parasaur, and the Centaurosaurus, except it had a sail on its back, which is a bit ironic considering it lived alongside and was preyed upon by Spinosaurus. Dylon. So Dylon was a teeny tiny Tyrannosaurus. So every Tyrannosaur that we know of can trace its lineage back to this little, you know, mammal chasing, insect eating chicken. Like, it had a slightly overgrown head, had slightly underdeveloped arms. It even had the two little teeny tiny fingers coming off of it like a big T-Rex. Anzu. Anzu, from what I can tell, is an oviraptor. So I'm not sure what niche this guy would fill, but nonetheless. And Acuroraptor. Okay, so Acuroraptor was a close relative to the Velociraptor. Now, the Velociraptor is not what you think from Jurassic Park and Jurassic World. It's actually a little teeny tiny creature, about the size of a chicken as well, just like the Dylon, and lived in what we believe to be like a desert. Acuroraptor was more like a Deinonychus, in between a Troodon and a Deinonychus is probably the best way to describe it. And that pretty much fills prehistoric beasts. ARK additions. Now, this is a mod that I do have extensive experience with, so quickly rattling these off. Deinosuchus used to be completely and utterly useless. It's had a lot of changes in the last 6 months to make it somewhat usable. So now it's quite formidable, it is very powerful, and it can carry a lot. It's still slow, but it can carry a lot. It has a lot of health, has a special tail slapping bone break ability that if you move while you've got that bone break, which is usually right next to it, so you can't escape from this thing once it does it, you take some serious damage, and the bigger the creature, the more damage you take. Zephyctinus. So this has got 3 different variants. It's got the normal one that you can see here. It's got the abyssal one here that's got the anglerfish looking sort of probes coming off the underside of it. The face of it's absolutely hideous. That is, whew, no thanks. And the X-type, which obviously is in Genesis Part 1 Ocean Biome. So this is definitely my favorite because it just looks awesome. Acro. So this Acro is actually the Scorched Earth variant. I'm guessing it's just called Scorched Acro actually. It's got a little bit of tuft of sort of like fur or feathers on top of its back, a little bit along its head. And at the moment its pose, like, it looks a little bit funny, but it's actually walking sideways because this is the defensive pose. I'll get into more of that a little bit later. Let's continue on. The Brachy. So this is the X-Brachy found in the volcano biome of Genesis Part 1. And when you do the Mega Stomp, which for those of you who haven't YouTube the Mega Stomp in the Bracky, yeah, go onto YouTube and check that out. It's quite devastating. It's really cool to watch. Lava and stuff spews out everywhere. It's really cool. Krylolophosaurus. Okay, so this has to be the most disgusting of tames I have ever tried to attempt. I have never been able to tame one above level 60. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I copy every YouTube video that I have seen in regards to how to tame it, but for some reason, it just doesn't want to work for me. The method just doesn't work properly. Don't ask me why. I've got no idea. Thankfully though, pardon me. Thankfully though, I don't care enough about the actual tame itself to worry too much. The Concavinator. So the Concavinator's got two variants. It's got the X type and its normal type. And essentially this is probably going to be the most powerful mid-tier sort of theropod or carnivore in the game. This trumps Thylers, this trumps Direbears, this trumps Carnos, Barrys, etc. This guy's quick. Like, even on land, he's quick. Once he's in the sand, not only is he quicker, but his leaping ability is just unparalleled. It's like a kangaroo. Just straight out of there. Or into there if you wanted to get into the danger. Acro. So the Acro, as I was saying before, it has a defensive stance. So it's got two stances. It's got a normal stance where it'll just walk normally forward like any other creature. But then it'll turn to its left-hand side, exposing its right. And when you're walking along it, the saddle will actually have the rider placed here, down underneath this main hump. And that's to stop you from getting shot off if you start soaking turrets. It's disgustingly overpowered. I wouldn't mind it so much, except there's no other creature where it's impossible to get shot off. Like, the Stego comes close, but no, this Acro takes the cake, because once the Acro gets close to like a structure with its defensive stance, instead of biting, like biting down to attack something, it will start ramming with its body. And when it rams with its body, it can damage any tier structure. And if you have high melee damage on it, which I can't imagine why you wouldn't, yeah, you'll be tearing bases to shreds. So here we have an Aberrant Brachy and Aberration. Here we've got an Aberrant Brachy up against a Giga. So just for a size comparison, because it's already got it here, the Titanosaur's back actually comes up to about this stirrup here. So that just goes to show that the Brachy is actually taller than the Titanosaur. The Titanosaur would floor a Brachy in a 1v1 fight, but yeah, the Brachy is actually larger. And lastly, the worst creature in ARK editions, the Parrot Turtle, or the Archelon. So if you're going after Biotoxin, this is definitely the creature to have, but otherwise it's just not worth it. It's got 4 seats, 4 passenger seats plus the rider, so that's a seat there, that's a seat there, and 2 on the other side. So in the water they're not awful, but everything wants to attack you, and the only real advantage you've got is that if you happen to kill a jellyfish, you'll get a jellyfish buff, which will increase your damage by, I think it's 3 times, and make you take 66% reduced damage for a minute or a minute and a half until you eat jellyfish again. So if you've got the buff, then it's perfectly fine. If you don't have the buff, then yeah, there are definitely stronger creatures you could be taming. But that just about... Oh, and the in progress creatures that they've got here. So Amargasaurus is like the Saltosaurus that we saw before from prehistoric creatures. So if you can imagine all these spines coming up out of the back of the neck, that's an Amargasaurus, essentially. They're basically the same size too. Gorgonopsid. So Gorgonopsid was the evolutionary form of the Dimetrodon. So Dimetrodon actually evolved into the Gorgonopsid. It doesn't have a sail though. Gorgonopsid does not have a sail. Scutosaurus. So Scutosaurus was actually the prey item of Gorgonopsid in the desert that they lived, going back before the actual age of the dinosaurs. Lindworm, which if I remember correctly, that's actually from Final Fantasy. Nyctoraptor, I've never heard of, so I can't comment on Nyctoraptor. I'll have to do some research on that on a later date. And Velociraptor. All right, so if this is the true Velociraptor, as I already said before when we were comparing it to the Acheroraptor and Dialong, it is the size of a chicken. It is teeny tiny. Not the Jurassic Park / Jurassic World that you guys all know and love. But nonetheless, that just about concludes the video. So we've gone through the different creatures. We've seen what they are, adding a little bit of context in regards to what they do. Whether or not like Wildcard will change their utilities, I don't know. And what they believe, what creature needs to be added, again, I'm not sure. But my personal pick is the Dialong. Now, you can't ride it, so it's not mountable, it'd be too small. But for some reason, I think just having this little teeny tiny ankle-biting Tyrannosaurus, I just can't go past that. There's something about that I just love so much. If they're not going to add that and it has to be something that you can ride, then I'm hoping for this Massospondylus. Because even as I said before, the Tickle Chicken and this have a similar backstory. Look at the claws. Look at the length of the neck. Look at the size of the head. Those traits there are so Therizino-like, it's not even funny. So if they have to, I would like to see this creature brought in, because this would take over the scorched earth or desert biomes, while the Theri takes over the forests and grass plains. So yeah, my pick for a rideable creature, the Masso, and non-rideable, the Dialong. But you let us know in the comment section what you'd like to see bring to the official game. So don't forget that Prehistoric Beasts is ARK sponsored, whereas ARK Editions is not. Little unfortunate. I'm guessing it's got something to do with it being sponsored by G-Portal. I think the official servers are sponsored by Nitrado. I think it's Nitrado. But nonetheless, I'm excited to see what this new dino is going to be. I sort of missed the tweet or the update where they were going to bring a new dino out. I knew they were bringing a new map, and I was getting geared up for that, but I didn't think that they were going to bring in a new dino with it. So yeah, let us know in the comment section below what you think and what you're hoping for. I do believe that the devs know what they're doing, and they're going to bring out something that's just going to add such a different sort of feel to the game. And that's sort of what you want. You want something that's going to add just a new aspect or a new utility, something that people don't normally do, that they perhaps could, or something that you've only seen in terms of testing and theory, and in theory it's good, but in practice it's bad, etc. Just as I said, like just having those portable ponds, like you can fill it up with water, the small, medium, and large, and then put certain creatures in that pond to live, and then you can get resources back from them. Or the Dialong, where it's a perfect base, a base guarding sort of creature. Like people might use Dimorphs and Troodons, but you might have a little teeny tiny T-Rex that it can latch onto people and cripple them instantly, even though they've got full health. So they have that broken bones trait thing going on. So they might be more susceptible to turrets or something like that. I just think that having something small that isn't normally utilized would be the way to go, because Dialong's no bigger than a Troodon. But nonetheless, again, I've probably said this like 6 times already, but yeah, please let us know in the comment section below what you would like to see. I definitely know what I'd like to see and why I'd like to see it. So if you guys have a suggestion, or if you guys have any extra info in regards to what these creatures do, again, let us know. I'd love to hear it. And yeah, cheers for tuning in, and I hope to see you in the next video.